I absolutely adore how these came out. Oh my gosh. The water mixed with the acrylic with that Stabilo in there. Oh, swoon. There is a little bit of contrast happening here already because purple and yellow are opposite on the color wheel. And so I do have contrast happening. However, is there something strongly dominant? I think you could argue on this side, perhaps, because the scribbles, there's 3 circles that are interacting. On this side, probably not. It's a little more unformed. That said, there's nothing crazy dominant. And so sometimes you'll look at something you've made and your eye doesn't know where to go and it's all over the place. That's when you turn to dominance to fix that. And so something larger than the shapes that exist and the backgrounds that exist on this will make dominance. And you can do it with collage, or we can do it with another painted layer. So I'm going to grab black paint and we're going to create a focal point with another layer of acrylic just right on the top of this one with black. And I'm going to dry brush the black on there. I love to dry brush a lot of my paint. Often when I begin my work with a dry brush, and then later it might be wet, or sometimes I use a wet brush if I want a watercolor look. But I do love a dry brush, and so I have like 182 brushes on my desk because I like the look of a dry brush through heavy body acrylic. That's what's happening here. You see that brush stroke dried, and here you see that loose, feathery brush stroke happening. That's because that brush was dry. Okay, so now I'm going to grab black. The minute this goes on, I'm going to have dominance, simply because of the color. So anytime you put something black on a piece, then you are creating dominance, especially if that black is bigger than any of the other elements happening. Because if I come over here and let's see, I can put black on this other side with just a speckle, and it's black, but it's not going to be dominant because of size. I mean, I love the speckle on that, but it didn't dominate. The color will help you dominate, as will scale. The size of something will help you dominate. And so if you look at a background and it's so chaotic and you don't know what to do, choose dominance. To order that chaos for you. So something bigger, contrasting, darker will definitely order that chaos for you. Okay, cool. I like that. Now that's dominant, but is it necessarily done? Probably not. We can still revisit that one. This one could be. I'll show you a few more things though. I love them both. Let me show you another way to order your chaos. So in the last example, we did very bold, very large painted shapes. You could have also done that with collage. You could have easily done this, with it some sort of contrasting or collage paper. Oop, I'm getting paint from my hands there. Cool, bonus color. Let's talk about another way to order your chaos, and I call it casting a net. And what that means is I can actually do a smaller shape, but I can do a lot of that shape. And so instead of size becoming dominant, what's going to become dominant is numbers. And so here I've got these 2 pages that I did on the craft in the media journal, and I love the color pop. I mean, I love the motion. It's cool, but nothing's dominant. It's all very static in the sense of color. And by casting a net, I can kind of corral it, and I can also control where you look. And casting a net is a metaphor. And so I always talk about casting a net. People are like, that's dumb. Just say creating a pattern over it. I don't want to give up my casting the net metaphor because I like it. Because I like the idea of if you had a fishing net and you're throwing that net onto the page, every little place that knot will touch is where you're going to make a mark. And so it's less structured than a true pattern, I guess, but structured enough to become dominant, okay? So I'm gonna just use black again. And by casting a net, creating a pattern in a way, but loose pattern, I am creating order to my chaos. And anytime you can do this where it touches a little of everything, what's going to happen is a unity. And unity just means everything is connected into, a cohesive whole. And by adding these pattern marks, this net, by casting a little net here, what I'm doing is I am controlling the chaos that is behind it. So if you ever have anything that you've done and it is just not cohesive, it's not relating to itself, if you come along and if you cast a net over it, it makes what's behind subordinate, it touches a little of everything, and it acts like the great unifier. Even this tag that I painted earlier, I can turn that into a more of a finished piece than just a random old tag by casting a net onto it. If your work is very dark, you can cast the net with a light color. If this were really dark, I might have wanted to do that with white. A metallic looks quite amazing, actually. It will have a more subtle effect. Let's go ahead and do that with metallic just for fun. The metallic will unify and it will order what's behind it, but not as strongly as a dark neutral will. And so, you've got to keep that in mind. If your chaos in the background needs to be really willed into submission, then maybe a light metallic is not your best choice. But if it only needs a little bit, or if you just want that little accent, then, a metallic neutral might be fine, if that makes sense. I'm just dancing around those black dots because they're wet. And so that also helps serve to order the chaos in a more subtle way. So you get to make those decisions, and later when you're creating your large piece, you will make those decisions and we'll combine all of these different methods, hopefully. Okay, I like it. It looks a little bit like watermelon seeds. Just need some green on there. Makes me crave summer fruit. Okay, let's talk about another way to order your chaos. So this is a page in the journal that you did not see me do, but I didn't do it any differently than what you witnessed. I had color in the background. I wiped some with a finger. Looks like I went in with a stencil and a pen at some point. It has some color contrast because I've got this circle here that's contrasting with the green. Okay, but is it really bold and strong? No, I don't hate it. But to really make it wow, what I can do is reduce it further. And one of my favorite ways of reducing further is with simple masking. And you'll see a lot of artists will do this, and they'll just start removing with paint the background, some of the background that's not offensive, because the backgrounds are never offensive. I always like everything, but if the chaos. So with paint, you're gonna reduce the chaos, and it makes a really effective finished piece. So here I have a Tim Holtz Ideology paper doll. They're already die cut, and I'm crazy obsessed with these things. If he even made them bigger, oh, my life would be perfect. You can cut images out of magazines. You can just cut a simple circle. And I'm going to lay them down. I'm going to paint and reduce the chaos that is around him. And as I do this layer has to connect to an edge. Just like when we began, our layers had to connect to an edge. My biggest issue with people silhouetting all the time is that they don't connect their layers to edges, and that always bugs me. If you connect your layers to edges, your silhouettes will look better, I'm just telling you. So masking, reducing will order your chaos. Now, do you have to reduce at all? Meaning reduce the whole piece? No, you don't. Most of the time, I start reducing the chaos by painting over it and by masking. and that's good enough. I don't want to reduce all of it. Most of the time I leave it partially visible because I think it creates a more dynamic piece. So that strong neutral field is controlling that, ordering that chaos, and it is making it easier to the eye. And then I've got a focal point. I've got a dominance happening here because of the masked shape. And if you don't want to do a human figure, that's a-okay. You can just do, like I said, a circle of shape. Put your hand on a piece of scrap paper, make a mask of your hand and just go around your hand. I often teach that when I do workshops with kids, is I'll have them I call it puke on a page. I'll have them just overdo a background, just anything goes. And then I will have them lay their hand down on a separate piece of paper, make a mask of their hand, and then I go ahead and have them paint around it. And so really anything can be saved with masking. That's why I'm never too concerned. If I do something and I hate it, I know I can mask it. It's not that big of a deal. And the more you hate the piece, the better it looks after you've masked. And masking is just a way of reducing the chaos. There are other ways of reducing the chaos, and that is cutting the piece into bits. It's hard to do that in your journal. Sometimes I do rip stuff out, cut it into bits. But the bottom line is, when you mask and reduce that chaos, it looks better. So again, by another method, reduce the chaos. So order the chaos by reducing the amount of the chaos that is visible. Let's try that on one of the other pages. So this was done in that journal just with the wet brush and using leftover paint, and it's not offensive. It's not overly chaotic, damaging, offensive to the eyeballs kind of offensive, which sometimes my work is, well, most of the time. But even this can benefit from reduction. And so I'm going to take white paint this time and a dry brush. And by painting over some of that, about out of white from that little jar, painting over some of that, it's going to narrow the focus down, and totally different look than the masking, but it's still reducing, right? It's still reducing that chaos of the background. This is a little dark metallic gray. It's called Medieval. I've been using it a lot as a preferred neutral lately. So you by reducing, you're kind of creating a little window for the viewer to see through.